For centuries, the Vikings have captured our imagination, their story told through firelight and whispered on the wind. They are the seafaring warriors of the North, a people shrouded in mist and mystery. But as we drift closer to the realm of dreams, let us gently untangle the threads of history from the colorful yarns of myth. Tonight we explore the top 10 silliest misconceptions about these fascinating people, allowing the true, quieter picture to lull you into a peaceful slumber. Imagine the gentle lap of water against a longship, not in raid, but in trade. A rhythmic, calming sound as we begin our journey. Myth number 1, and perhaps the most iconic, is the horned helmet. Close your eyes and picture a Viking. He is undoubtedly wearing a helmet adorned with great curving horns or mighty wings. It is a powerful image, but a complete fabrication. There is not a single piece of archaeological evidence, not one excavated helmet from the Viking age, that has horns. Such a design would be not only impractical, but dangerously foolish in battle. A sword or axe could easily catch on the protrusion, wrenching the helmet from the wearer's head or snapping their neck. Real Viking helmets were simple, functional, often conical or rounded, designed to deflect a blow, not to decorate it. The myth was born centuries later, from romantic artists and opera costume designers who sought a dramatic, barbaric look. So let that image fade, replaced by the simpler, sturdier reality, a smooth dome of iron under the northern sky. The second myth we can set adrift is the idea of the Vikings as a single, unified nation. They were not a monolith. The word Viking itself is more of a job description than an ethnic identity. It referred to the act of going on an expedition, often overseas. Most people in Scandinavia were farmers, fishermen, craftsmen, and traders. They were Danes, Swedes, Norwegians, living in scattered communities with their own chieftains and laws. A man might be a peaceful farmer for most of his life and go on 1 or 2 Viking voyages. There was no Viking king, no unified flag, no singular purpose. They were individuals from different lands with different dreams. Imagine countless fjords and inlets, each with its own community, its own story, not a single, terrifying army. Third, we come to the myth of their overwhelming brutality. History, often written by the victims of their raids, paints them as bloodthirsty demons. While their raids were indeed violent and terrifying, they were no more brutal than any other warfare of the era. The Frankish, Anglo-Saxon, and other European armies were equally capable of horrific violence. The Vikings were also sophisticated traders, explorers, and settlers. They established peaceful trading posts from Dublin to Kiev. They were skilled diplomats and lawmakers, creating one of the world's oldest parliamentary systems, the Althing, in Iceland. Their society had a complex legal structure. So, while the warrior aspect was real, it was only one facet of a multifaceted culture. Picture a scale, balancing a sword on one side and a merchant's weight on the other. This leads us to the fourth silly myth, that they were unhygienic savages. The opposite is true. Archaeological finds include tweezers, razors, combs, and ear cleaners made from animal bones and antlers. They bathed regularly, at least once a week, which was far more frequent than many of their European contemporaries. An English chronicler of the time even complained that the Danes bathed too much, that they were overly concerned with their grooming and cleanliness, seducing English women with their well-combed hair and clean clothes. So imagine the scent of soap and steam from a bathhouse, the careful braiding of hair, the neat trimming of beards, a people who took pride in their appearance. The fifth myth is that they were all towering, muscle-bound giants. Examination of skeletal remains tells a different story. The average Viking man was about 5'7" tall, which was actually slightly above average for the time. Women were around 5'2". Their strength came from a life of hard labor, farming, rowing, building, not from cartoonish musculature. They were lean, tough, and resilient, built for endurance rather than just for show. Their diet of fish, oats, and dairy was healthy but not designed to create giants. So see them as they were, people of average stature, their strength lying in their resilience and fortitude. Number 6 is a dramatic myth, that they used the skulls of their enemies as drinking vessels. This grisly tale likely arose from a misunderstanding of Old Norse poetry. The poets often used kenning, a type of metaphorical compound phrase. A warrior might be called a feeder of ravens, meaning he created corpses. In a similar way, a drinking cup might be referred to as a skull or curved bone of the head. Later translators took this literally, and the myth was born. In reality, their drinking vessels were made from wood, clay, metal, or hollowed-out animal horns. There is no archaeological evidence for skull cups, so let the image of a grisly goblet melt away, replaced by a well-carved wooden bowl or an ornate drinking horn. The seventh myth is that they were a godless people, only concerned with battle and glory. Their spiritual world was rich, complex, and deeply interwoven with their daily lives. They worshipped a pantheon of gods like Odin, the wise, one-eyed seeker of knowledge, Thor, the protector of mankind who wielded the mighty hammer, and Freya, the goddess of love, fertility, and magic. They performed blots or sacrifices for good harvests, safe voyages, and victory. They believed in fate, known as Urlog, and that courage in the face of that fate was the highest virtue. Their beliefs gave meaning to the world around them, from the thunder to the changing seasons. Imagine a small offering of bread left at the base of an ancient tree, a quiet, personal prayer for a good harvest. The eighth silly myth is that all they did was raid and fight. While these activities were significant, the backbone of their society was farming, animal husbandry, and trade. They were exceptional craftsmen, creating beautiful jewelry, intricate wood carvings, and finely wrought weapons. They were explorers who settled Iceland and Greenland and reached North America centuries before Columbus. They were settlers who established thriving towns in England, Ireland, and Normandy. They were traders whose networks stretched from the Caspian Sea to the coast of Canada, dealing in furs, amber, silver, and spices. Picture a Viking woman weaving a complex pattern on her loom, or a smith carefully inlaying silver wire into a sword hilt. Their world one of creation as much as destruction. Myth number 9 is the belief that their funerals were always massive, flaming longship send-offs. While this did happen for very high-status individuals, as recorded in accounts like the funeral of a Rus chieftain by an Arab traveler, it was the exception, not the rule. Most people were given much simpler rites. The most common practices were burial in a grave, often with grave goods for the afterlife, or cremation on a simple pyre, with the ashes then buried. These graves could be under mounds, marked with stones, or in simple plots. The dramatic ship burial, set aflame and pushed out to sea, was a spectacular rarity, a funeral fit for a king, not for the average farmer. Imagine instead a quiet family gathering, a body laid to rest with a few personal treasures, a mound of earth raised in remembrance. Finally, the 10th myth we can release is that they simply vanished into history. They did not disappear. They gradually converted to Christianity and became integrated into the kingdoms of Europe. Their DNA is woven into the populations of the British Isles, Ireland, Normandy, and beyond. Their legacy lives on in the languages we speak. English words like sky, egg, knife, husband, and window all have Old Norse origins. Their spirit of exploration and their legal traditions echo through the centuries. The Vikings didn't vanish. They settled down, they changed, and they became a part of the very fabric of modern Europe. They are not a lost people, but ancestors. And so, as these myths gently fade like mist under a morning sun, we are left with a truer, richer picture, not of mindless, horn-helmeted brutes, but of a complex society of farmers, traders, explorers, poets, and yes, formidable warriors. People who valued law, family, and craft. People who bathed, combed their hair, and navigated by the stars. As you drift towards sleep, let your mind wander to the quiet shores of a Norse farm, to the sound of a blacksmith's hammer, ringing not on a weapon, but on a tool, to the sight of a trading ship being loaded with furs and honey, its sail not yet raised for raid, but for a journey of exchange. The wind whispers true stories now, stories of everyday life, of quiet courage, and of a people who were so much more than the myths would have us believe. Let the true history of the Vikings, in all its nuanced reality, carry you gently into a deep and peaceful rest. Good night.